Mr. Travers, what's the history of the Victoria?
Well, she's a boat built for the Newcastle coastal work, built in 1897 in London, and named, as you will see, after the Queen of that day, the Victoria. She's a fine craft, 7.5 tons. She has a 9'3" beam and a 40-foot length. She's built of mahogany and is quite unsinkable.
What were some of the rescues she figured in?
Well, the main one was the Adolphe in 1904 when they saved the whole of the crew of that vessel. But probably a more spectacular one was the Alpina when the lifeboat itself rolled over several times in the heavy seas without loss of life.
How did the Historical Society come to obtain her?
Well, in 1947, now then president of the Historical Society, one of the fine old gentlemen of our district who's done more for history here than anybody else, the late Wilfred J. Gould, pressed his claims for this with the Maritime Services Board, and they finally agreed to let him have it for preservation and for presentation to the public for general benefit.
And then what happened?
Well, it's taken us 15 years to do it. Our trouble hasn't been money, it hasn't been funds or material, it's been site. We haven't been able up till recently to obtain a site where we thought it would be best for the public and for all concerned. The council did offer us a site, which we felt wasn't quite suitable, so we stayed on and persevered until the enterprising Mr. Scar of the Hunter Valley Dairy Company gave us this site that we're on today. And I think it's going to be a benefit to everybody.
I understand it's been quite a cooperative effort to get
It's been a very cooperative effort. We've had the industries, we've had the dockyard give us the cradle that she's on, we've had people assist in many ways, the paint people and others have materially assisted to bring this fine result that you see here today.
Mr. Scar, what's the contract all about?
Like the Bombay Milk Commission over a period of years have called tenders and purchased milk powder from the various manufacturers for the purpose of using it in the toning of buffalo milk down from a butterfat from 7% butterfat down to approximately 3.4. Just after the war, we supplied the large quantities to the Bombay Milk Commission, but of late years, due to the Americans going to that market, we have not supplied a great quantity. Lately, they have called tenders for approximately 4,000 tonnes spread over the whole of Australia, and we have tendered for a proportion of that order.
And what sort of milk is it?
It's skim milk powder, which is then reconstituted on arrival in India, and that skim milk, liquid skim milk, is then used, as I said previously, for toning the buffalo milk down.
Will this mean any increase in production? for your factory?
No, at the present time we're passing through a prolific season, and if it wasn't and production was down a little, well then we would simply, having a diversified plant both here and at our other factories, we would simply divert milk from one product to another according to the requirements.
What's this going to mean to the dairy farmers in the valley? Are they going to have any benefit from it?
Well, not immediately. After all, if we did not dispose of this particular order to the Bombay Milk Commission, it would at the present time go to other markets, but we have a long-range point of view which will be of interest to the dairymen, and that is to build up our local markets and also to build up a stable export market. That policy was adopted in view of the possibility of England going to the European Common Market.
What about the standard of milk? Would it be the same as the local product?
Yes, all of the milk produced by this company is under strict supervision of the New South Wales Milk Board, and the milk that we use for the manufacture of our products is milk surplus to the Milk Board's requirements.
Sir, it is a great pleasure for my daughter and myself to have this opportunity of visiting this famous Australian city. It is a city which is important, as you would say, not only in the economy of the state of New South Wales, but in the economy of the whole Commonwealth. And I should like to thank you, my Lord Mayor, and Maris, for extending to us this mark of hospitality. The growth and prosperity of Newcastle is a fine example of the successful and intelligent exploitation of natural resources. It has been said, and truly said, that the greatest single event in the history of this city during the present century was the establishment of a great steelworks here in 1913 and 14. And that step was of immense importance not only to this city, but to the economy of Australia, the whole of Australia. And I'm sure those of you here who are familiar with the history of the city of Newcastle will bear in mind and remember other names, perhaps unknown to me, of outstanding people who have made great contributions to the life and development of this city. There's always a certain stage in the life of a thriving community where it is, in a sense, carried on by the momentum imparted to it. But that momentum has to be both sustained and guided. And it is both the direction and the pace of development which have to be so carefully considered. Newcastle, I know, will continue to be served and well served by its council, by its citizens, and by the varied industries already established here. And I'm sure that a great many other industries will, in the course of time, be attracted to this very valuable and important area. I know that you have laid far-sighted plans for the future. But the implementation of those plans required the same intelligence and the same imagination as was shown by the pioneers. Sometimes, my Lord Mayor, we speak perhaps rather too glibly of the development and exploitation of natural resources, as if in that term we were making a complete description of development.
but because I felt I was treading the same ground so often. But tonight, for the first time, I'm in a position to make some specific recommendations with regard to public and private investment in the region, and these flow from our intensive regional research of the past 3 years. They are being brought to the attention of this gathering because here we have a body of citizens responsible for public and private investment. These are the gentlemen who have to make the decisions, and I want to put before them avenues along which we would like their minds and their thoughts to travel in taking action with regard to investment. I'm going to present then 15 targets for investment in the Hunter Valley. I'm not going to present these necessarily in order of importance or merit, and as I go along I'm going to mention the name of some of our leading sponsors and some of our new ones. These too are not necessarily ranked in terms of importance, and our major sponsor, the State Government of New South Wales, I will thank generally now, because otherwise I would have to mention it on every occasion, and I am sure Mr. Sheehan will accept my general thanks in this way. The first target is the development of the Port of Newcastle. The Port of Newcastle is a national asset. In terms of tonnages of cargo carried, it is Australia's largest export port, and this means that for the Commonwealth it is a fundamental physical unit in building up our foreign balances. In a national situation in which these balances are of the utmost importance to our future prosperity, it becomes a matter of the highest priority that this port should be under constant study and the subject of continuous high-level expenditure for the increase of its efficiency and the further use of its potential in international trade. The improvement of the communication links from the Port of Newcastle to the north and northwest and the central west are obviously of major importance and significance, and the natural integration of the Hunter Valley region with the northwest is becoming increasingly apparent as our studies on transport flows progress. There is a natural identity of interest with the Hunter Valley region and the northwest of New South Wales, the promotion of which should continue to be a major object of public and private investment. The third target I would like to mention is the drainage of the Lower Hunter. We turn now to a physical problem which has been before us for a number of years because of the wet seasons through which we have been passing. The delta of the Hunter River comprises some 400 square miles. This is 400 square miles out of a total catchment of 8,500 square miles, but it has become a major trouble spot in our local economy. This area points up the importance to the region of certain physically small areas which are nevertheless key areas in our total activity. Of the 400 square miles of the delta, 70 square miles are natural water areas, and the wet seasons have raised the water tables and kept these water areas not only at capacity but have caused water to spread over adjoining parts of the delta. From this area, from this delta, comes 20% of the dairy income generated in the Hunter Valley, and it is an urgent problem in investment to relieve the drainage problems of the delta. Plans for such drainage exist, and the implementation of them is a matter of high priority. Investment target number 7, the planned development of Newcastle, Lake Macquarie, Port Stephens, Maitland and Cessnock as a complex. Turning to problems of urban development, the local government areas which I have just listed are an extraordinary phenomenon in the Australian scene. If we list the towns and cities of Australia in order of their population, 3 of the above areas fall within the first 20 population centres of the Commonwealth, and no other region in Australia exhibits this situation. In addition, the overall growth of Lake Macquarie Shire from 1947 to 1961 census year
outstripped the growth of the comparable areas of the cities of Greater Wollongong and Geelong. In the interests of the region, planning by these local government bodies should be based on cooperation, certainly not on conflict, and the planning needs of the complex should be studied as a whole. The intensive use of coal. This region, the Hunter Valley region, is always associated with the production, use and export of coal. But in recent years, changes in emphasis in use and technology have caused basic disturbances in the employment pattern in the industry. A major use of coal from the region now is the generation of electricity, and by 1970, 80% of the power requirements of the whole of New South Wales will be generated in this region using the coal of the region. We have examined the trend of coal production from many points of view, and it is apparent from this research that if there is not a major change in the market situation or in technology, by the year 2000 coal will have fallen very considerably in its importance in the production of this region. The development of flood-prone urban settlement should be discouraged because it is now raising more problems than it did 10 or 20 years ago, and the cost of protection is rising correspondingly. Here is a very dynamic problem for the community of the floodplain and for those authorities in charge of communications which cross it or run along it, and it is a challenge which should be accepted in the interests of future generations. As you know, we have been examining the whole hydrologic pattern of the Hunter, including the occurrence and distribution of rainfall, the regularity of stream flow, the pattern of flooding, and we have also calculated the irrigation requirements. Against these, we can now read the efficiency of dams proposed in terms of their flood mitigation effects. We are not in a position to say anything yet about their efficiency for irrigation. It would appear that at the present time, if we use the most efficient Australian structures as our standard, the dams could be built for about £25 million. But if we use as a standard some other dams in Australia, which have not been constructed as economically as the ones on which we base our low estimate, then the whole system could cost $75 million.
Mr. Chairman, my Lords Bishop, my parliamentary ministerial colleagues, civic representatives, Mr. Deputy Lord Mayor, Reverend gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, I thank you, Sir Alistair, for those to this gathering this evening, which I hope Mr. Finnan, with his usual mathematical precision, will at least say that it is more than a quid pro quo. I have to announce to you that the government grant to this foundation was calculated broadly on a pound-for-pound basis for money raised by public appeal and public donations, with a limit of £12,000 on the government grant. In order to attract the full £12,000, it was necessary that the foundation should fully raise approximately £18,000. The Premier and the Treasurer has asked me to announce the approval of a new basis of calculation, namely £3 grant for every £1 raised by way of donation, with a limit of £18,000. I knew that would warm the cockles of Mr. Finnan's heart, and apparently for many more hearts here as well. Well, the limit having been raised from £12,000 to £18,000, this is to operate on a 3-year basis commencing in the present financial year, which, if my mathematics and my intense, deep financial knowledge in government affairs commenced only a few days ago on the 1st of July. With the growth of education, with more friendly relationships of employer and employee, with better understanding of problems, with operative machinery, not perfect by any means but available, there should be no valid excuse for stupid, irritating and unnecessary work stoppages, whether caused by unwarranted tactics of labour or agents provocateurs of capitalism. Industrial thuggery or provocation, as it's sometimes referred to very loosely in speeches in newspapers, is not the exclusive preserve of the one or the other. Threats or menaces on either the part of capital or labour never win in the final accounting. In the past, as an example, the coal industry of the Hunter Valley was deeply wounded. Canning, a former Prime Minister and Foreign Secretary of Great Britain in the last century, said, "You should never use menaces unless you are in a position to carry out your threats." Even with arbitration and conciliation, threats and menaces can and still are being made. Is there any solution? I think there is. The establishment of a new discipline on a university basis for industrial officials in both management and workers. I do not mean a course in economics, but a syllabus similar to those introduced in other disciplines by the University of New South Wales, hospital management. Matriculation should not be a condition for entrance to this course, but officers such as President, Secretary, organisers, industrial and research officers and executives would be admitted to these courses by virtue of this status. In lectures in industrial history, industrial relationships, limited economics, budgeting for expansion and a little psychology embracing personal relationships would, I believe, help in removing many of the misunderstandings and in a more comprehensive understanding of the problems. A freer discussion between parties in impending disputes that might harmonise those relationships with the general welfare.
Yes, this will be wonderful for you to stop that dry skin of yours in the winter weather. Very good. And if you have any troubles, come back to us again.
Thank you very much. You've been most helpful.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Well, good afternoon, boys and girls. Today we're in the well-known department store of David Jones in Newcastle, talking about my job. I'd like you to meet Miss Josephine Lewis, whose job is a cosmetician. Is that right?
That's right.
Josephine, how long have you been doing this work?
3 years now. I started in Hobart.
Did you come straight from school, did you?
No, I was working in a fashion department and I answered an ad for cosmetics as I was always interested in it, and I got the position.
So an interest in cosmetics is the thing that started you off in the first place?
Yes, that's right.
And you were in Hobart for how long?
12 months, and then I shifted up here to Newcastle.
What training have you had, particularly in cosmetics?
Well, we've had training in nearly all brands, and the one we specialise in most, we have a week's training in Sydney.
Each girl in this particular store, or each group of girls, specialise in one particular brand. Is that the idea?
That's right, yes.
There are also girls who work full-time for a firm that makes these cosmetics. Would that be right?
Yes, they have consultants that will be full-time in like Newcastle and just go around the suburbs, and then they'll have a consultant which will go all around like Australia in different states.
Is it an interesting job, your one?
I think so. It's very interesting, helping people with their different skin types and trying to get the right thing for them.
We took a bit of a survey among some of the girls who are leaving school in 3rd, 4th and 5th years, and the job they wanted to find out most about was this job of a cosmetician. Do you need any special education for a start?
No, I don't think so. I mean, to be a bright sort of person, I think people like to be served by somebody that is bright and helpful and really cheerful.
Are there any formal courses perhaps at schools or technical colleges these days?
Oh, nothing that really leads up to the cosmetic type of thing. You have to learn that when you come.
Mainly this is done by the actual firms themselves who make these cosmetics.
That's right, yes. They'll give you their own particular training, which they think is the best way to sell cosmetics.
Do you do any demonstrations here in the store, or you just meet people one at a time?
Well, anybody that wants to have a makeup or try anything on, we will be only too happy to, put their makeup on for them and show them how it looks.
I suppose different times of the year mean that different problems come up in makeup too, do they?
Oh yes, I mean summer you have the very oily skin, and winter you have the very dry skin, which we try to give them something that'll counteract.
Josephine, would you say that this job as a cosmetician is hard to get into initially for a teenager?
For beginning, yes. Unless you have training, it's very hard to get into the stores. Very hard.
How would you suggest that a girl who's leaving school and wants to get into this job would go about it? Is there an easy way?
Oh, not really. I mean, to get the situation vacant, to see if you can get in, I mean, you find most jobs are open to a young teenager to start off with. You'd be lucky if you got in.
How about starting work in perhaps a chemist shop or in a department store selling beauty aids such as this? That would be pretty good training for a young girl, wouldn't it, if they could get a job like that?
Yes, it would be. I think there's probably are many jobs open like that. You've just got to find them.
Just a matter of looking. Well, thank you very much for being on our My Job segment today. Miss Josephine Lewis was interviewed today in My Job. She's a cosmetician here at David Jones in Newcastle, telling us about her very interesting job as a cosmetician.